Hello, I'm Tim Smolens, and today I want to analyze the deceptively simple sounding chord progression and to a lesser degree the poetry of the lyrics and the orchestration of what, in my opinion, is Brian Wilson's most tender, beautiful, and mesmerizing ballad. Now, when the subject of tender, mesmerizing ballads comes up, as I'm sure it frequently does in your friend circles, casual dinner meetups, and company functions, it is not hard to make the declaration that nobody wrote tenderer ballads. Is that a word? Tenderer? Nobody wrote more tender ballads. That doesn't sound good either. No one wrote sweeter ballads of pure innocence than Brian Wilson. With so many to choose from in the early days of the catalog, with songs like The Lonely Sea, Surfer Girl, In My Room, The Warmth of the Sun, to the increasingly sophisticated pre-Pet Sounds era with songs like Kiss Me Baby, We'll Run Away, Let 'Em Run Wild, all the way to the Icarus-like heights achieved on Pet Sounds and Smile with the absolutely divinely gorgeous ballads like God Only Knows, You Still Believe in Me, I Just Wasn't Made for These Times, Wonderful, Surf's Up. There are too many to mention them all here. Before we get along with the proceedings of analyzing this great chord progression of this song that is yet unnamed, please take a minute to aid my efforts to make this channel grow, start a little community of weird online music education here, hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Consider joining my Patreon, which is called High Castle Conservatory, where we do this kind of stuff, but more and deeper. If you're into the Beach Boys or doo-wop influenced music, check out my group ISS and the title track to this album, She's a Girl, on Bandcamp or timsmolens.com. Also, check out my more progressive group, High Castle Tele Orchestra, on Bandcamp. We have a new video called At Last He Will, which I think you will very much enjoy. Last thing before we get underway here, please explore the playlists on my YouTube channel here, some of which may interest you, and are divided into various categories like music production, music theory, and chord progressions, and my various music projects, High Castle Tele Orchestra, ISS, Stratosphere, and more. It is fairly common knowledge among music theory dorks like myself and fans that few people, if any, wrote more sophisticated and complex chord progressions in pop and rock music than Brian Wilson did. You have people like Stevie Wonder, who wrote some amazingly complex stuff, Steely Dan, who does really amazing big jazz chords, Burt Bacharach, and to a lesser degree, your Paul Simons and people like that. But in my eyes, Brian stands alone in the upper pantheon of the chord progression masters in popular music. His music is kind of between jazz and classical, and yet it's not really either. There's just something so special about his use of, inversions, which not a lot of groups dive into, doing a lot of alternate bass notes like he did. The beautiful thing about his unique style of harmonic complexity is that the sophistication is not readily apparent to the average listener, and unlike much of progressive music, the complexity is absolutely not the point of his music. Brian didn't set out to make more complex chords than anyone. He set out to make music that sounded good to the ear and expressed love, innocence, and good vibrations. His chords, melodies, and orchestrations simply sound pleasing and fit the music. But they also happen to be very complex in that they use a lot of chord extensions, more often found in jazz, while avoiding the trappings of being, just jazzy or whatever. Lots of interesting vocal voicings inspired by doo-wop and barbershop quartet and counterpoints, and utilizing a heavy dose of inversions, which are more common in classical music than popular music. He really did that more than anyone. What are inversions? Inversions are when you take a chord and you don't play the root. If I have a C major chord, the root inversion is playing C in the bass. Now I could put a G in the bass, which is the fifth of C, or I could put the dominant 7 in the bass, or I can put even the 4 in the bass. So it's when you have an alternate bass note, that's basically an inversion. Before I get into the chord analysis of this still unnamed song, which will be revealed here, is that a big cliffhanger? Oh man, you have to do cheesy stuff to keep people's attention these days. It's coming. I'm going to announce which song I think is the most tender. It's really exciting for you, I know it. Before I get into the chord analysis, I do think a little bit of context and background will be useful. The song I am choosing to analyze the chord progression and lyrical themes of, and in my opinion is the most tender, special, and beautiful ballad that Brian wrote, Among an admittedly lengthy list of worthy contenders is the song Wonderful from the legendary, enigmatic, abandoned Beach Boys album from 1967, the psychedelic unreleased classic Smile. I greatly prefer the Smile version to the subsequently released Smiley Smile version or the 2004 Brian Wilson Presents Smile version. Check out the 2011, which is a release of the 67 sessions. Check out that version of Wonderful. If you're not familiar, go listen to that now. It's the one right here on the screen. It is true that Brian never fully finished Smile, but it was getting pretty close, and it was tragically abandoned for reasons too complex to get into here. Whoever put this box set together in 2011, restoring the music from the original tapes, sure did a great job in making bonus material such as vocals only and instrumental backing tracks, all of which give a fascinating insight into the increasingly exotic and specific ensembles of studio musicians that Brian was concocting to portray the lyrics and theme of each song on the album. Also check out a video on the fascinating history of the Lost Smile album. The Smile album, finished or not, is my favorite recording of all time, and in my opinion is Brian Wilson at his absolute peak. The music itself is very strange and psychedelic, and sounds more like a Mr. Bungle album than it does an old Beach Boys car and surf anthem album. I am choosing the song Wonderful because it exudes a certain Baroque elegance and simplicity, and contains a melody and chord progression that are beautiful beyond words, as if snatched from the mouth of a dream. It also features an atypically bare, sparse orchestration by Brian production standards, and to great effect, really. Wonderful has this set of lyrics that qualify as genuine poetry, making sure to evade any juvenile rhyming scheme that most pop music falls into repeatedly. But, rhymes, I get their place, but most music, if you're always rhyming, I'm sorry, it's not really poetry. The words were penned by Brian's Smile collaborator, Dyke Parks, who was a very knowledgeable and almost like a beat poet type of character that he found in LA at that time. Together they portray their subject matter, in an eloquent and abstract way that invites, expanded interpretations, as poetry should. In the realm of Baroque poetry ballads, man, I would live in that realm. This song was forged by this tragically short-lived collaborative duo of Brian and Dyke. They achieved something that is, as of yet in the world, I think unequaled. It's really something unique and special. If you are unfamiliar with the song, please take a moment to listen to this version right here before going on. After the release of Pet Sounds, Brian had turned his attention towards the album Smile and continued further distilling the production style he had cultivated with Pet Sounds. He began to develop what could be called pictorial arrangements and orchestrations. You see, most rock and pop bands can only paint, sonic landscapes from a limited sound palette achievable by drums, bass, guitars, some keyboards maybe, and vocals. That's pretty much rock. I mean, sometimes there's a couple other things, a lot of sitar on a Rolling Stones song or something like that. But most of rock and pop, it's not saying you can't achieve a lot, and they've done a lot with that. But Brian, he had been taking things much further than that even already. He had access, with budget and everything to the A-list studio musicians of the day in Los Angeles in the mid-'60s. Which was the heyday for that stuff, 60s and 70s. And he had the imagination to dream up wild instrumental combinations. A lot of them were Spector influenced probably, and the recording budget he had to hire them at his whim was awesome. Brian developed a reputation in the LA music scene of ordering up some rather odd ensemble combinations. Hey Harry, I need a bass harmonica player for a rock session tomorrow for a song I call Hang On to Your Ego, but Mike says we should call it I Think There's an Answer. Hey, I think we need 2 accordions and a kettle drummer and a tenor sax to play on an old-time rock and roll groove we got called Shouldn't It Be Nice? The call he would probably put into his manager, whoever set up that we need this musician or that musician, it would have been really interesting because he asked for some very interesting stuff that other rock and pop groups were definitely not asking for. So that would have been fascinating if more of that stuff was on video. But anyway, I digress. After the artistic triumph of Pet Sounds, Brian got even better at letting the instrumental ensemble combinations reflect the actual lyrics and themes of the song and the album as a whole. I don't even think most of us know how to do that. Something I didn't know how to do for at least the first 20 years of my recording career. This is what I'm referring to when I say pictorial music. Take the song Cabinescence from Smile. It's a song about the Chinese slave laborers who built the United States Transcontinental Railroad, and you have chugging cello, tambourine, this fuzz bass, some plucking inside the piano, and backing vocals that chant, Who ran the iron horse? The music sounds like what it is talking about in the song. It sounds like a train rolling down the tracks and every symbolic associated idea. This technique of making pictorial music is something that has been used by classical composers to depict, natural phenomenon. Multiple composers portrayed, bird songs, like composers like Messiaen or Camille Saint-Saëns portrayed a variety of animals in his work, The Carnival of the Animals. Other composers have used, orchestra timbres to conjure up sounds of a bustling city or other natural environments, maybe water or something. In general, rock, pop, and jazz has never really been great at achieving pictorial music, although you could make an argument that, classic jazz records sound kind of abstractly like a bustling city like New York City. I have a memory of playing on the streets back in the day with my band of Stratospheres to go down to downtown Santa Cruz, and our saxophonist John Hooley, this fire truck drove by on Pacific Avenue, and he was able with his tenor sax to make it. Everyone thought the siren was going off on the fire truck, which it wasn't, but he mimicked it perfectly. So that was a good example of that as well. Before we get on with the fun in the sun of analyzing the chords from the song Wonderful, I can't help but make a few statements about the lyrics and theme of this song. While I fully acknowledge the potential trappings and futility of analyzing lyrics and locking them into one firm meaning, I think some mention of the lyric and subject matter will prove useful for you guys, especially for those that might be unfamiliar with this song or its lyrics or Smile. Of course, these are just my interpretations, and I could be wrong, or mine are just one way of many to look at these, as any great poetry, naturally invites those multiple interpretations. There is no rhyming in this lyric. Most music utilizes rhyme, and to me it's a bit juvenile how incessant it is. It's almost like a Shel Silverstein book or something. Most pop and rock music, they don't know what to do if they can't rhyme. The rhythm, of that rhyme falling at the end of each phrase, kind of keeps it in a simple rhythm for most people. But if you remove that and try to write music that just sounds, lyrics that just sound beautiful, it is very difficult to do. There is no better example of a non-rhyming lyric than this song to me. It's absolutely beautiful the way that it just flows and is not slave to the rhyme. As far as the subject matter, the lyrics to Wonderful seem to trace the journey along the feminine path of life with the universal innocence of the newborn baby girl on through to her turbulent, adolescent period, all the way to motherhood, from the laughs and the cries to the sighs. Lyricist Dyke Parks uses a generally very erudite and abstract style, often with vague historical references, and he was not afraid to even utilize puns that almost border on being too cute or campy, but somehow end up working to lighten the serious, poetic literary tone of the rest of the lyrics without taking it too far. The word father, the next word after father becomes farther. There's no way that's not intentional. When he says a boy bumped into her wonderful, he says one wonderful. It's definitely like this unity type of, I don't know, God or whatever Brian, the word God comes up here. We'll talk about that later, but one wonderful. These little puns that kind of give a little bounce to the lyric. It is hard to deny that the phrase "a boy bumped into her wonderful" is in a very clever way to express the loss of virginity. A boy bumped into her wonderful. Or the idea of puberty. She knew how to gather the forest when God reached softly and moved her body. I mean, it's an absolutely wonderful way to say puberty. The treasures stored up in these lyrics are boundless, in my opinion. An expanded discussion about these will follow the chord analysis, which I know most of you, it's kind of like the headlining act, and I'm leading up to it. I'm sorry it's taking a little bit to get there, but this song has a lot of background and context, so sorry about that. It's coming. We're almost there. As I stated before, the simple instrumental ensemble dialed up by Brian for this song is atypically sparse for him, yet seems to perfectly complement the lyrics and subject matter that Dyke Parks was bringing to the table. This doesn't have castanets and tambourines and string sections and 4 different guitars and all this stuff. The central instrument for this song in the ensemble is clearly the harpsichord, playing this type of pattern. Every other instrument sort of blends in, almost beneath that. The harpsichord adds a real Baroque quality that is oozing from this song. I don't know exactly what Baroque means, because Baroque music doesn't sound like this, but this music, it sounds like nothing else. The production is noteworthy for having no drums. Most rock and pop music has drums, and drums take up a lot of space in a mix, and if you happen to remove the drums, you have all of this space for whatever. In this case, he uses it for this sparse ensemble and some vocals on top of it that really help them sort of shine in the mix. There is a staccato-ish, woody sounding pizzicato stand-up bass. It helps the walking down the path vibe. Boom, 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 but on a stand-up bass being plucked. There's also this intentionally crackling trumpet where it kind of enters on a half-botched note that sort of fixes itself in a way that it just sounds kind of innocent, and it exudes the feeling of like a newborn baby. I can't explain it, but Brian was really, really into picking an element and making it really embody the lyrics. They really avoid, it doesn't sound like a bad joke when it comes in with this little trumpet crackle. Like I said, it fixes itself, but man. There's also apparently a tenor ukulele as I do some research. I can't really hear it in there. It's playing something very subtle. I'm not sure what it is. So just those 4 instruments is the whole song. Think of God Only Knows with accordions and French horns and clip-clop percussion, sleigh bells, harpsichord, piano, string sections, drums, 3 basses, clarinet, all this stuff, flute. This is so sparse, these 4 little instruments. Brian had matured. It's a tragedy Smile never appeared. He was really coming into his own as a composer and a producer and an arranger and all of the above. Think of people compare the Beatles and the Beach Boys. The Beatles had like 5 people doing what pretty much Brian was doing alone. Anyway, that's another subject. There's also a set of background vocals that is quite unique, even by Brian Wilson's elevated standards of background vocal glory. It takes up about half the instrumental space in the mix once it comes in, remember, because there's no drums, so there's lots of room for these background vocals. But the background vocals smoothly morph between sounds that inspire in the mind of the listener the idea of a journey, a meandering down a path. Da 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 da. It just sounds like it sounds like you're kind of going down a path. Yodel, yodel. There's yodeling in there. It comes for some Beach Boys chord vocal stack, so the vocals will kind of come together on a syllable and then be contrapuntal. On the word wonderful, some voices are going one, 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 one. Some things like that. It's very simple in a certain way, but it's just absolutely elegant in its delivery. All right, I swear we are almost to the chord analysis of Wonderful. It's right here, I promise. Look, it's right there. All the keys, all the flirting with multiple keys. Just hang in there. It is coming right now. Last thing, let's talk song form. As far as song structure, Brian has a history of making some unorthodox arrangements and interesting innovations in structure. But here he decides on the simplest of song forms imaginable. There are 3 elements to this song form. There's not even a chorus. There's not a bridge, and there's not an intro. The components of this song can be broken down into 3 parts. Shout out to YouTuber FeelFlows409 for pointing out the simple structure, which I will echo here. Check out that channel's video on how to play this song on piano. The form consists of verse A, verse B, and an interlude. And the interlude is really short. It's just... That's it. I didn't know what else to call it. It's a little lick that goes back into the verse. Verse A and verse B have the same first half and then diverge on the second half. And the interlude, is just those 5, 2, 3, 4, which leads back to the verse. As I analyze the chords, I will point out the structure of the song, the key, and the section name, which will be reflected in the chord chart on the screen. Look at this chart and let me point out how to read it. Some of the symbols are unique to me. You can download a PDF of this chart in the description below. So you see on this chart, if there's a circle with a sort of a sun rays, that means new key. Then right next to that new key right there, you see it says verse A1, so that's the name of the verse. Then if you see a heart, that kind of means it's flirting with a different key. So we're still in F sharp there, but it's flirting with B. Then we see up here, there's a new key of E. That's pretty much it. You also see the Roman numerals, which tell us which chord of the key that we're currently in this chord functions as. So if we're in F sharp major, like I say here, and this chord is C sharp, that's functioning as the 5, that Roman numeral 5. And anytime there's a key change, those Roman numerals will reflect what key I've stated that we're in. Without further ado, I will now break down the unique chord progression, key changes, and slightly ambiguous polytonal nature of this chord progression. When I say polytonal, I don't mean literally multiple dissonant keys are happening concurrently, but rather that the progression itself flirts with multiple related keys that share multiple chords in common. I doubt Brian really scripted that or was going after that kind of complexity that this song truly contains. My guess is he arrived at this type of concoction in a fairly intuitive way. Follow the muse. You got to follow the muse. But either way, if he was struck by the muse or inspiration, we can still analyze it. Some of you are saying, "Oh, I'm overanalyzing," but I'm just doing the best to put this in a box so I can understand it, and maybe tap into some of that, from some of my songs. Can you use the same devices he's using here? And that's all you do. Learn new licks and put the licks into something else. This song is largely in the key of F sharp, but heavily flirts and modulates to the key of E major, which is not in F sharp at all, and also hints at a few other related keys, maybe B major and C sharp major. So yeah, this note E is not even in the key of F sharp. These keys are related, and this device is found throughout pop music history. Device alert. The key of the flat 7 of any key is related. So we're in F sharp. E is not even in this key, because we have F in this key. But for some reason, we've all heard this, right? All right, and a really good example of this magical flat 7 relationship would be the song In My Room by the Beach Boys. So that's in the key of B, so that magical flat 7 chord is going to be A, which is not in the key of B. So In My Room would check out when it uses the A chord, which is 2 different times in this progression. It's amazing. We're in B. There's a world where I can go and tell my secrets to 1, 6 in my room, 2, 7, flat 7 to 5 in my room, flat 7. It's a beautiful relationship that one enjoys to its flat 7. Don't forget that. The flat 7 has this really special connection. So we're in the key of F sharp in this song, but it flirts with E. Check out this chart to see how certain keys of this song are related and share some important chords in common. These common chords between the keys create ambiguity as far as what key the listener might perceive they're in at any given moment. The longer you can blur those lines and make them not sure what key they're even in classical music, there's, the old... It's very clear what key you're in, but when you're doing... It's not super obvious, and that's beautiful. You can kind of make it a little more abstract harmonically. All right, we're finally to the chord analysis. Gosh, I do these lengthy intros. I feel like the song invites me to say all these things so that we can get to this point, Maybe it's me, maybe there's really that much in this song, but let's go through these chords. So we see up here, I'm saying the song is in F sharp major. Why? The first chord is C sharp. So how do I know it's an F sharp? That's kind of weird. The melody just does a major triad. She belongs there. But the bass note goes, it doesn't go. Now you could make a case that this could be like a desperado type thing, where you turn one dominant. Why don't you come to you? So we see it goes C sharp, but the bass goes B. So it's kind of like a C sharp 7 chord. So it's 5 of F sharp. And the next note we do doesn't really help us either in the sound of it, because it sounds ambiguous because it's B, but over F sharp. Let me just say the real voicings are up here, which I think sounds beautiful in the song because it's got that little stand-up bass and stuff with it, but I think when I'm just playing it, I don't want to be up here all the time. So it goes C sharp, bass walks down dominant, and then you go to B over F sharp to G sharp minor 7. So things are only getting murkier as we go on, but here's how I'm contextualizing it. I'm calling that we're in F sharp, and C sharp is the 5. You see the Roman numeral 5? The Roman numeral. It's innumerable Roman numeral. So here's the weird thing. When you have the chord progression of B to G sharp minor, most of the time that is 1-6. Right? But there's something else it could be too. It could be 4-2 of a key. So remember I said we're in F sharp? We're in 4-2. So if we take it from the beginning, this is 4-2 of F sharp right here. B over F sharp and G sharp minor. But I put that little heart that it's flirting with B because, and this is a beautiful bass note when Brian does B instead of, he does the F sharp. So what we really have from the beginning there is 5, then 4 to 2, then to 5 with a different bass note, so C sharp over F, then to 1 dominant, different bass note, and then this is a classic 2-5, right? We all know 2-5-1 is the essence of jazz. So much music is 2-5-1. It's ridiculous. So we get there. We're in a 2-5-1 F sharp minor 7 to B7 in the key of E. Remember I told you we were flirting with E with this song? This song is a meditation on the relationship between F sharp major and E major. And remember, E is not even in the key of F sharp, which is why it's so amazing that they work together like that. So anyway, let's take that back a little bit. Never known as a non-believer is the 5, but over a different bass note to the 1 dominant. Now it's going to change keys and do a, see, I see what we said we changed keys here to E, that little sunshine E. We do a 2-5 and E. And then in the key of E, G sharp minor 7 is 3, C sharp minor 7 is 6, but now it gets weird. It changes back to F sharp and does 2 dominant, or not 2 major, but different bass notes. You could call it, say we stayed in E, and that's like a 3 major to a 6 major, but I think it's working its way back to F sharp. But see, I do say we're flirting with both G sharp and C sharp, because look what I'm really doing. G sharp to C sharp, which would be in the key of G sharp, but I think this is a 2 major to 5 in F sharp would be the best way to call that. So, wow, what a progression already. Let's take that back a little bit. So 2-5 in F sharp, that little thing, but look at the bass notes. Now we have that little interlude thing, which is just the 5 notes. But look what note it starts on. This is the crux of the whole song. I'm telling you right here. Remember we're in E sharp. Remember we're in F sharp. And I told you that this song's flirting with E, which is not in the key. What's the first note of this little interlude climb up? It goes down to E, but then goes right back to F sharp. So it's more of that flirtation with E, where it's like, no, we're in F sharp, but nothing to see here. Oh, we did E first. Right? So anyway, let's go back to the beginning of that verse. We got 5 of F sharp. She belongs there. And then 4. Sorry. She belongs there. 4 to 2. G, 5. 2-5 in E now, 3-6 in E. She loves and stays in. Now to F sharp, 2 major 5. 1, wonderful. And the first note it goes to, even though we're in F sharp there, is E. And then goes right back to the F sharp major scale. Remember I said this song has like a walking down the path feel? That's why it has it. It's such a special note, that E. So anyway, the song form, like I said, that was verse A1, and then the interlude is just those 5 notes. Verse B1 starts off exactly the same for halfway and then diverges from the chord progression of the first verse. That's why we call them verse A and verse B. Start off in F sharp again. On the 5, she knew how. 4, together the 2, forced wind. 5, God reached. 1 dominant, softly. Now a new key, 2-5, just like in jazz, 2-5 and E. Moved her body. Now a completely different section. We have 1 over its major third in E, and then we go to an F minor 7 flat 5, which if you know my channel, you know I'm all about that chord, and that's what Brian used better than anybody. What the heck is going on here? Let's back up a little bit. Come softly and move her body. 2-5 and E. 1. Now we go to the 1 of E, but the different bass note. Golden. Maybe we change keys. Look it quite young. Okay, what on earth happened there? We have E over G sharp, which is 1 of E. Now we do learn that the minor 7 flat 5, or the half diminished chord, occupies only one place of a major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that is 7. If we're in C, let me show you why. The B diatonic would just be to take every other note, right? So if we have C, D, E, F, G, A, let me go down an octave, A. When we get to that B and do all white keys, because we're in C, you actually get a half diminished chord. So a half diminished chord is either the 7 of a major key, and in this case that would be F sharp major, right? So it's either 7 or it's the 2 of its relative minor, right? The relative minor of F sharp major is D sharp minor. So the 2 of D sharp minor is that minor 7 flat 5 also. So, back it up again. 1, 1. Now change keys. 7. Lock it. 4. A different bass note. 1. Now we do a 1-6 in that E. Goes back to that E relationship that I would keep talking about. So let's go back. When golden. Change keys to 7. Lock it. And it's not just changing keys. F minor 7 flat 5 has a relationship to E. It's kind of like a... It's not saying there's no relationship. It functions kind of in both keys. So anyway, we have one golden locket, 7 of F sharp, quite young. 4 over the 1 though. And loving her. And then suddenly back to that other E key that it keeps flirting with. Mother and father. Then turns that minor major. Most of the time things progress from major to minor, but if you can turn a minor major, that's a great device alert right there for you to use. So this was doing just vamping on a 1-6 in E. And then finally it farther down, it turns it major and even dominant in the bass line. Let me give you an example of the brilliance of taking a minor chord and turning it major. My friend Joel Robineau wrote an amazing song called Sarah's Song for the first ISS record we recorded. Check it out. ISS, Sarah's Song. Brilliant song. Where's that reverb coming from? He is in A. It's about a guy in jail who's missing his daughter during Christmas time. So he's in the key of A and goes 1, 3. 3 is C sharp minor. 6 is F sharp minor. But then immediately turns that F sharp minor to major and does the same progression in that key. F sharp, 3, A sharp minor, 6, D sharp minor. Then he turns that to major and does 1, 3 in that key. So check that out one more time. It's really cool. Sarah, you know I'm still your daddy. Turns that to major. Though you don't know what's going on. Let's turn this major. All these things in a dusty room. The rope swing that I made for you. it's not used that much. Good pop songwriters can, let me get that reverb off. Good pop songwriters can incorporate that minor chord and turning it to a major. And I don't think I've ever seen it used better than by Joel Robino for Sarah's song. So now we go to page 3, and we are back to verse A2. So the same verse form as A, but this is the second time it happens. So we call this A2. Sorry, I'm getting my page all so I can see it there. We are in F sharp, and same, there's nothing different. We're in 5 of F sharp, C sharp, then 4 different bass notes on all of it. 4-2, which also, remember I said hints at a 1-6, 5, 1 dominant, now a 2-5 in the key of E. He keeps flirting with. It must really like this E. And then 3 in E, G sharp minor 7, 6. Now this weird thing that I'm saying, you could call this a lot of things because we're flirting with G sharp and even C sharp a little bit. We go back to F sharp and call it 2 major to 5. But look, the alternate bass notes sing. And then that interlude that's 5 notes and starts on E, of course. So that's pretty much it. It just keeps repeating that form. There's nothing else special about it. But by the time you listen to that, the chord progression, oh my God. All right, let's go over this chart one final time. I updated this chart a little bit so all the related keys are in there. There were a couple that I hadn't added. There's times where it's flirting with 2 keys. So song starts in the key of F sharp on its 5, climbs down from there. Then goes to B over F sharp to G sharp minor, which in the key of F sharp would be 4-2. But in the key of B, it would be 1-6. In the key of E, it would be 5-3, all valid. So that was kind of why I said it was flirting. It doesn't really move out of F sharp. Then we finally get to a 2-5 in E major, so it finally switches to that magical flat 7 relationship by basically turning the 1 dominant into a 2-5. So if you turn the 1 dominant minor, it's basically the 2 of E. You do a 2-5. Then instead of resolving to E, it goes to the 3 of E, which is G sharp minor 7, which is very similar to an E chord, except it doesn't have an E. Why is it glitching? Anyway, so it's in E, it does a 3-6 right there, but that G sharp to C sharp is, the 2-5 movement in the key of F sharp. It just happens to be that this isn't a dominant chord, so we're going to call that still an E. Then it does this progression here, which is, as I said, F sharp, but it also flirts with G sharp because it's like a 1-4 in G sharp. But in C sharp, it would be a 5-1. So it's all of those things. And even on this climb up here, it flirts with that E, which basically turns that into almost like an F sharp 7 chord, but in parentheses because it's only doing single notes. And then the next verse starts off the same. So we're in the key of F sharp. We go 5, then, as I said, 4-2 in F sharp, but it also serves as 1-6 in this key or 5-3 in this key. Still the same. We go 5 over with a different bass note, then 1 dominant, and from that 1 dominant you turn that minor and it becomes 2 of this E. So we already did all that. Now this totally new thing, instead of going to that G sharp minor 7, we still keep that G sharp in the bass, which is actually really cool. I actually never noticed it's the same bass note, so it kind of tricks the ear, but it's an E major chord. So 1, but with this weird that 3 in the bass always keeps a very unique feeling as long as you don't abuse it. Then it subtly switches to F minor 7 flat 5 or F half diminished, which also has a relationship to E because it's kind of like the flat 2 half diminished. It's not fully in the key, but it works very well in that key. But it kind of slides into F sharp and does the 7, which is F minor 7 flat 5. But that is related to the key of E, like I said. Even flirts with B because it has that magical, in any key, the flat 5 half diminished is a magical chord, as I went over in my God Only Knows video. So you always want to know the relationship of any half diminished and find the key that is a tritone or a flatted fifth above it to find its related major key. So anyway, this is still in F sharp, and then we're going to go 7 and then 4, 1, but different bass notes give a completely different feeling than if you were just strumming this on a guitar with no bass notes. And finally, the turnaround for verse 2 is in the key of E major. We do a 1-6, but with this different bass note. But it also flirts with B, because in B that would be 5-3, And in B, that would be 4-2. And in A, this would be 5-3. But it's functioning in E. I just wanted to broadcast that relationship. Dyke Parks said this about the song. It was the only boy-girl song written for the project. Musically, it's entirely different from anything else, and I thought it was an opportunity to begin a love song. I remember Brian pressing me about the relationship between the mother and the father and the child. And this is the guy who wrote When I Grew Up to Be a Man. The guy is becoming a man. I really think he was thinking about his own personal progression from childhood. The lyrics tell the story of a girl whose meeting with a boy disrupts her devotion to God and her parents. Brian commented, "It's a sweet song all about a girl who just stays in her little world, you know? And then she bumps into a boy, and then she gets her heart broken, and then she goes back to her wonderful." Of all the songs on Smile, some of which deal with spiritual themes, Wonderful is the only one that refers to God. I strongly encourage people who are turned off by that type of word. Poetry is different. God can just mean the center of your world or nature or whatever. It's not really a time to be arguing, theology. If someone can poetically sneak in the word God, I think it's very beautiful the way he uses it here, and I have no issues with it at all. In fact, most secular music really just replace God with the idea of the lover. I'm not saying everyone writes songs about lovers, but most music is kind of like that. So they really just, instead of God, it's like the girl I love or the boy I love or whatever. So it's no different. This is poetry. The word God can mean nature. It can mean whatever, not whatever you want it to be, but it whatever is central to a subject. By all accounts, Brian had a really spiritual outlook on the universe. He saw it as full of love and intelligence, and music was a living representation of that. So when he says God, I just go with it. Brian, he has me. Now I'll just do a quick sort of lyrical semi-analysis. Like I said before, multiple meanings. Here's just kind of my take on it, okay? I'll read the first stanza there. She belongs there, left with her liberty, never known as a non-believer. She laughs and stays in the wonderful. This is the baby, stays in her wonderful. They're in their divine innocence, as Brian kind of saw it. Never known as a non-believer. The baby doesn't have to be a believer or a non-believer. The parents are almost kind of like God to the baby, right? Because they're feeding it and nurturing it. It's a beautiful little lot you could interpret there. She belongs there, left with her liberty, never known as a non-believer. She laughs and stays in the wonderful, or her wonderful. I don't know which one it is. It's hard to hear. She laughs and stays in the wonderful. Now she grows just a little bit bigger. She gets a little bit bigger. And the next lyric passage says, she knew how to gather the forest when God reached softly and moved her body. One golden locket, quite young, and loving her mother and father. It's beautiful. It's very simple. She's precious. It's beautiful. She's growing. God reached softly and moved her body. She's getting bigger. So at the end of this verse, and loving her mother and father, the very next lyric says is farther, and that's clearly a pun. One golden locket, quite young, and loving her mother and father. Farther, so the path keeps going down. Farther down the path was a mystery. Through the recess, the chalk and numbers, a boy bumped into her wonderful. So recess really makes me think of like, school and like the little lunch break, the break you get before lunch, the recess time. But through the recess could be something that's recessed. Chalk and numbers, I'm thinking hopscotch. A boy bumped into her wonderful. So it's a really nice passage there that communicates growing and adolescence in the schoolyard, and I'm sure there's something I'm missing in there too. Farther down the path was a mystery. Through the recess, the chalk and numbers, a boy bumped into her wonderful. So what happens once the boy bumps into her wonderful? That's got to be the loss of virginity. We're playing hopscotch before, but now we're playing ashes, ashes, we all fall down. So after the boy bumps into her wonderful, it's all fall down and lost in the mystery, lost it all to a non-believer. Man, the two non-believers, I think they mean something very different. I'm not even sure what it should be, but most women probably end up losing their virginity to someone that they end up saying, oh, maybe that was not the right person, or I don't know how that happened. It wasn't like it was their Prince Charming. So that's the vibe you're getting here, is like some kind of mistake, or who knows. But all fall down and lost in the mystery, lost it all to a non-believer, and all that's left is a girl who's loved by her mother and father. It sounded like a mistake, whatever it was. Did she have a baby with this guy, or is she with a... We don't even know, because all it says in the next verse is, she'll return. So remember this path? Everything keeps coming back. The music is being a path. The lyrics are being a path. The different instruments. It's really almost circular like that. The song could go on forever. So she'll return in love with her liberty. Remember the first verse? She belongs there left with her liberty. But the liberty must be a little baby. She'll return in love with her liberty, just away from the non-believer. The non-believer took her virginity, and she was born a non-believer, but she's not a non-believer anymore because she's been through it all. And instead of she'll laugh and stay in the wonderful like in the beginning, she now is a mother, and we all know the tribulations of parenthood and all the work that it entails, and it's not easy and all that stuff, and keep you up all night, and it's very, very difficult. She'll return in love with her liberty, just away from the non-believer. She'll sigh and thank God for wonderful. And the lyrics are one, wonderful. So it's this unity, this wonderful, this what you're born into from that womb, that comfortable place where mom and dad are kind of like God to the baby. And then it grows and goes through that whole progression. I don't know. That lyric doesn't rhyme. It's still, I'm sure I missed a bunch of meaning in there. I mean, come on, this lyric is freaking unbelievable. Dyke Parks, you hit this one out of the park. If you like this video, please hit subscribe below, ring the notification bell. Please explore my YouTube homepage and the playlists that I have categorized into different things you may or may not be interested to, and hopefully that separates them out for you. You could consider joining my Patreon, where we go deeper into this kind of subject matter. High Castle Conservatory, it's called. Check out some of my musical projects like High Castle Tele-Orchestra or ISS, the She's a Girl album on Bandcamp, both of them. Go watch the brand new video release from High Castle Tele-Orchestra called At Last He Will, and consider picking up that mind-melting album that we spent 3 years making. If you like this video, here are some other videos on my channel you might like, including doo-wop background vocal training and Beach Boys-inspired original music and other tutorials on this type of stuff. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.